Welcome back to Naval Action and episode 39 of A Letter to the King. Letter to the King, if you're new to the series, is my attempt to keep us up to date with what's going on the Euro PvP1 server as far as port battling and general biffo is concerned. So let's remind ourselves of where we were last week. Last week had been a bit of a lull after the previous week's madness. The Brits were the only ones really to break through, snagging up Castrius just south of the French capital. Other than that, I think there was maybe a port swap down here where the French grabbed up a port. I think that was about it for takes. I don't think there were any other takes. What happened this week? Well, of course, the patch is now out and they've fixed all the... most of the PvP stuff. There was another interesting fix which we'll touch on a wee bit later. But let's have a look what happened this week. So the Americans had fallen out of the alliance due to silly timingness with the Brits. They're now firmly back in it. But the Danes have fallen out of the alliance, not with everybody, but with the Spanish. So that's important because that's going to play a bit of a part in the week's shenanigans. Let's see, where was the biffo this week? So we'll start off with the French having to defend Les Cays. So the British rocked up with their Dutch colleagues and a couple of American screeners. In fact, the screening force was really impressive for this one. There must have been 40 ships outside of the British, Dutch and US alliance, and there was quite a lot of Swedes and Spanish. It was actually the only time I'd seen Spanish all week hanging around outside, so there was a little bit of nibbles going on outside. The Brits eventually got into port where they were met by, I'm pretty sure it was a lot of Danes, and this fight went a little bit to and fro. First of all, the Danes were a little bit slow to get in because of all the screening going on outside. So the Brits had at them. However, as a few of the French and Danes were joining late, what this meant was the British Mortbrig spent its whole time being pegged around the map. The latecomers sort of coming in behind the British lines, and two Connies basically spent the entire battle chasing our poor old brig around the map until somehow with 50% sails he managed to slip the drunken bow chasers. The battle itself ebbed a wee bit to and fro, but it was one of those ones. I think the Brits probably lost 4 ships and the Danes, French, not sure if there's any French in there, they lost 7, I think. If it had gone on for another hour, the Brits might have been able to turn it. There were a lot of Danish ships, really one good volley away from trouble. But it was your classically well-defended port battle. Fights were picked by the defenders where they had an advantage. Otherwise, it was just run around the map, the same as the Brits did the previous week, actually, to the Danes down south. So that is very much the meta, especially in the fourth-rate battles. Even when a fourth rate is damaged, it's still got enough speed to get through the wind and tack, etc., etc. So it's really quite hard to take a port from a skilled defence. I think the Brits possibly could have done more damage early on before the defenders had got all their ships in, and they possibly could have taken better position. But the good thing with this one was there was quite a lot of sort of new blood in each of the fleets, so lots of new captains getting a go, and that was a little bit evident. But nonetheless, a good defence by the Danes. The next bit of slapdashery was the Brits had a go at Trinidad down south of the Windward Islands. And this was a cracker of a port battle. The Brits went in 2 lines, almost forming a V formation to try and envelop the French formation. Now, this was fantastic. Great tactics, Brits. However, tragedy struck, and this is a first rate, when one of the French ships asploded in the middle of the British fleet, and it pretty much made 5 British ships non-combat capable. They were down just to their foresails. Many of them had lost more than half of their crew. And this was almost revenge for, where was it where this happened to the French? Was it Belize? It can't have been Belize. Anyway, the French, oh yes, it was on Sector Bomb Day. The French had a similar thing. I think it was with fourth rates. Now, the French did the gallant thing, really, and stuck around and died to a man. But of course, that's easier to do in fourth rates because they have many Durham abilities. Whereas first rates, especially if you've put the effort in to craft them with your live oak and get a strong hull bonus on them, are more expensive little babies to be thrown away. So the Brits decided that running away was the better part of valour and turned tail, only for one of the Brits to get caught and asplode himself. So the Brits then turned back on the French, and we had this sort of Benny Hill Scooby-Doo moment as everybody was running to and fro in the battle. In the end, the French held. I can't remember the score from it, but it was pretty even. I think the Brits maybe clobbered a couple of extra French because the Brits had a few escape, though in the end the French were well safe on the BR. And this is one of the things I think with the why we're all really waiting for port battles for Christmas. Come on, devs, give us the new port battle mechanics for Christmas, because the work that's been done on the penetration mechanics and the new bonuses you get around the map with strong hull and so on and so forth means that, to be honest, an hour and a half, which is quite a long time to commit to any game, but an hour and a half for a port battle simply isn't long enough. A skilled captain will know how to prevent his ship from taking full broadsides. In the hub and the bub of a port battle, it's not overly normal that you manage to land, full 40 or 50 shots of a broadside. Ships aren't at optimal angles or ranges, so the top two decks quite often aren't doing the do. And if you're up against a strong-hulled, extra planking Lothian, it's pretty much only your bottom deck that's going to penetrate it, guaranteed. Your second bottom deck is going to probably get about 60%, and it's got beautiful curving, the Lothian. And then your top two decks, they're just going to, mess the paint up, really. Anyway, well done to the Frenchies. They held that pretty well. The explosions certainly tipped it early doors. Should the Brits have stayed and fought? Well, it was one of these things, tactically probably not, because your strong hull fleet is a precious commodity. But in hindsight, if they had stayed and carried on fighting, perhaps when the British ship had exploded, they'd have left themselves in a really good position and possibly could have finished off the French. And that would have been a huge victory, but nonetheless, it wasn't. So, that's what happens if you turn tail and run. It's pretty hard to win when you're running away, as my grandma used to say. So the Dutch decided to go after Pampatar. Not Pampatar, the one next to Pampatar, I can't remember its name, the fourth-rate fleet, fourth-rate port next to Pampatar, Cascuminara or something. And the Spanish, who, other than screening up here, I have to say, I've never seen such inactivity from the Spanish, although it's pretty low across the board right now. I'm logging on at what's called peak time, and you've still got a low server count on the weekend. It's all a bit depressing, to be honest. Come on, boys, let's get back into this. Anyhow, the Dutch, and again there was the normal buddies all screening. However, it wasn't the Spanish, it was our lovely friends the Danes again, and this time they'd done some more testing and discovered a new bug, and it was a bad bug, because what they discovered was the thing that checked what ships you could bring into what port wasn't working, and so the Danes turned up with a victory in their fleet. And he clicked on the cutlasses and joined the port battle, and he joined the port battle. So the Dutch and the Brits were a bit grumpy monkeys with having to face a victory in a fourth rate, and decided, nah, it's hard enough attacking a well-defended port as it is. So they took their ball and went home. And the devs claim this has been fixed, not the following night, but the night after. So let's hope that's the case. And then the last action of the week was the same port, actually, the Kuminara, or whatever it's called down here, the fourth-rate port. And it was meant to be the Swedes, but it was mostly the Danes. However, they didn't do their log off, and they tried to sail into port, and there was a lot of screeners in this neck of woods. Actually, this was a first-rate battle, I think. But they didn't get in, and I think one ship got in. Yeah, one ship got in, 24 defenders got in. There was a lot of screening action going out. Their main port battle fleet got caught up. It got away mostly unscathed. However, it just basically sat in battle screen because very much fearing that the whole area around them had been camped as they'd come out of Orinoco, or whatever it's called up there, the Laochilla, the free port. So this was a 5-minute port battle, to be honest. Once the lone Dane who got in realised his fate, he legged it. And so the Dutch defended that one easy enough. And then lastly, as I said at the start, the Danes fell out of alliance with Spain, and they decided to make hay while the sun shines. So this is, before you start giving me all the malarkey, I am not criticising the Danes here, I am criticising game design. I honestly don't understand, if you're not at war with an enemy state, how can you raise hostility in their waters and still not be at war? And then how can you capture 4 of their regions and still not be at war? I just don't understand this game, devs. Nothing to do with you Danes. I'm sure all of us would do it if we had Spain as an ally and they own 3/4 of the map. So, well done in grabbing yourself up some land. So they took Pampatar off the Spanish. They've taken all of the Dominican Republic and the vast majority of Haiti. So I think they'll be back into the alliance in 2 to 3 days. So there's probably an opportunity for one more land grab. They could maybe come in round here, I'm not sure. This might be on hostility cooldown, however. So the Danes grabbed up all these neck of the woods. What are we going to see? Well, we know the Americans have caused agitation. This is, I think, is A's. So this will be a port battle that they've set up in their TZ. We know there'll be biffo in this area because there always is. I've downgraded the lightning to a little lightning here because there's just so much not going on north of Belize. Where a lot of fun is happening, and I have to tip my hat to the devs for this, is the PvP battles have been absolutely great fun. If you go in there with, I'd recommend sort of in groups of 3 to 5. I think you're a brave captain if you go in on your Jack Todd. Especially the deep water. The shallow water's not as well visited, which is surprising because it's near the noob zone, but maybe there's not that many noobs. So you can get yourself, and the prizes are quite good. So you get a paint job, which is always exciting because you feel special. You get a random ship. I got a very nice mahogany crew space agile hull Agamemnon nom nom. So that's good. That's a great ship to troll around, and the Agamemnon is such a nice ship to sail. It really is. It reminds me, one of my first cars was a Mini Cooper S with a roll bar that could go round a roundabout, didn't even need to touch the bloody brakes. Absolutely, it was like scale electric, stuck to road it was. And the Agamemnon nom nom reminds me of that sort of thing. It just is such a responsive boat. It turns when you ask her to. She'll come through the wind without blinking an eye. She's got a decent sort of loadout off her port and starboard. You get yourself a strong-hulled version of one of those, and she's a tanky little beast. So I had some real good fun just towards the end of the week in the deep water PvP area. I think we were in a group of 3 to 5. We met a bunch of pirates. We had a fantastic fight. We came out victorious, and this is the good thing about the PvP zone, because it's players who love PvP looking for PvP. One of them messages in global, and they says, right, we're reforming. I think they even let us know they had one more player, so we grabbed in another player from memory, and we had another spanking great fight. And yeah, and then most of us got prizes out of it, so that's really good. And the prizes come same day, so once the last battle's finished, redeemables appear in your redeemable-ometer, and you get yourself some lovely prizes. I think this is really good. They run 3 times a day. They alternate between deep and shallow. I'm humming and hawing about if I can be bothered to get myself a port near one of the shallow ones. But certainly the deep one, I'm having great fun in there. And all of the PvP Denzians, they go in there and have some fun too. So, yeah, and I mean, the PvE missions are all right, but they're a bit repetitive. I mean, it's the same, isn't it? PvE is good fun, but you are against a robot, and it's kind of an AI cheating robot that, if you ever watch their rudder, they just go from normal to full left, normal to full right. There's the cannons are on gimbals, so they can swivel their cannons to an oblique angle of about 20 degrees, and they can shoot your arse off from the other end of the map. However, they are thick as a plank and will turn into the wind and then sit there having a bit of a mumble about what's gone on. They do tend to play a bit of Ring of Roses and just sail in circles. But they will offer you the wind, and then you can thump 600 leagues into them and sink them. But it's never like playing a player. You're rarely going to find a player who's less of a challenge than AI for you. I won't name names, there are a couple. But you're rarely going to find a player who's less of a challenge than AI. So these PvP battles are great. I do worry, my only worry is, what I'm finding at the moment is people will turn up in droves for a port battle. Indeed, they'll turn up in droves to screen, because screening is quite often some of the best open world battles you'll get. You get huge, big 20 odd on 20 odd, even bigger than that sometimes, in the open world, and it tends to be a real mixture of ships as well. Now sometimes it's hugely lopsided, but I've seen some fantastic fights that go on for the full 90 minutes. So everyone's happy to rock up for the glory of a port battle, even though 9 out of 10 of them will go to the defender. And everybody's happy to screen, because it's great fun. However, trying to get people to help you raise hostility, it's amazing how many dogs need walking. Anyhow, I think this is where we'll see the Biffo next week. And these PvP zones are fantastic. I wish they'd move them, move their time a little bit or something. Yeah, although it's quite funny, the PvP around these areas get lots of hostility, which is reasonably funny, because people are sailing in and out and snotting each other on the way. So there was really no genuine ports changed hands this week. The 18 ports that the Danes got were all from their alliance buddies. They weren't defended, and of course none of their enemies can defend on their behalf. So they were gimme ports. I honestly believe nothing to do with the Danes. Oh, I've not changed all my bloody letter symbols. It doesn't matter. It's not the Danes' fault per se, but my opinion is you shouldn't be able to raise hostility with a nation you're not overtly at war with. You should be neutral with them, and if you do, you should become at war with them. That would, if they're going to allow that. Anyhow, the Spanish lose another 20 ports. They don't care. The Danes do care though about grabbing up ports. That'll help them. There's some nice bonuses in there, and some nice materials too. So that's it for this week's Naval in action, because there was, I think, 3, maybe 4 genuine port battles. Hang on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 4 genuine port battles, and the rest were sillies. Look forward to next week. I'm hoping they give us a Christmas present of a land in port battles or something. We need to get some boys back into the game, so let's hope the Christmas holes bring some of our friends and our captains of yore back to the oceans. And until then, give me a like, give me a subscribe. I'll see you on the oceans, and I will catch you.